Hey everybody, today we've got another 2024 election recap in 5 different states. We'll look at president and everything down ballot, including the ballot measures. We've got Nevada, Nebraska, North Carolina, and Connecticut, but we're going to kick it off here in Wisconsin. This critical Rust Belt state in the former Blue Wall was won by Donald Trump, but it was close. He's at 49.7, Harris is at 48.9. Not a whole lot of change here from 2020, similar to 2016 as well. It's a narrow margin each time and it keeps going back and forth. Still nobody with a majority of the vote here since Obama in 2012. We've got a little bit of third-party vote here, led by Kennedy with about a half a point. Then we've got a U.S. Senate race, and that was also extremely competitive. Incumbent Democrat Tammy Baldwin won a third term over Eric Hovde. She got less support than Trump, but more than Harris. She's at about 49.4. Hovde is at about 48.5. So Hovde doing more than 1 point worse than Trump. If a fraction of voters came out just to vote for Trump, but left the rest of the ballot blank, that might have been enough to cost Hovde this seat. But I'll give it to Hovde. I did not think he was a super strong candidate for most of this election. He ended up making it super close, but he comes up just short. So Baldwin squeaks by for another 6 years. Then let's go down here to the House. We've got 8 seats. 6 of them are going to be controlled by the Republicans, 2 for the Dems. Only one of them was actually competitive. That's in the 3rd district. That covers the Driftless area. Derek Van Orden secured himself a second term there over Rebecca Cook. It was only by a 2 to 3 point margin though, so it's not at all convincing. Now this congressional map stayed the same, but down in the state legislature, that map was redrawn to undo the Republican gerrymander. So that means Democrats picked up seats, but it's going to remain divided government with Tony Evers the Democrat for governor and Republican Senate and Assembly. Now we've got one ballot measure here that would require citizenship to vote. That passed with little opposition at 70% to 30. And the last thing we've got here is a special election in the 8th district. That's to finish the remainder of the term of Mike Gallagher, who stepped down earlier in the year. That was easily won by the Trump-endorsed Tony Weed. So a lot of nail-biters there in the Badger State. Let's move to the Southwest, to Nevada. This state was won by Donald Trump by about 3 points. In 2020, Biden secured it by about 2.5. So that's a lot of shift, more than I was expecting. So Trump is the first Republican to win the state since 2004. And this is also the only state that he did not win in 2016. So he's over 50%. Harris is under 48. None of these candidates pulls in 1.3. Trump did not win Washoe or Reno counties, but he kept the margins close, especially in Clark. That was enough for him to pull out the win. Then we've got the U.S. Senate, and this had incumbent Democrat Jackie Rosen winning re-election. She's at just under 48. Sam Brown is over 46. So there's still a good chunk of vote outside of those two, and none of these candidates got 3%. Sam Brown made it close, but he just could not get it done. Those polls that showed him trailing by more than 10 points a few months ago, that did not really seem to make a lot of sense to me. But ultimately, I thought he would come up short, and he did. It's technically a disappointment for Republicans down ballot. Trump carried the state. All Sam Brown needed to do was get that same level of support, and he would have been the next senator. So after that win for Rosen, we can go down here and look at the U.S. House. This is an unfavorable map for the Republicans. Democrats are going to control 3 out of these 4 seats. 3 of them were single digits, including in the 3rd, which was a narrow 3-point margin. But unless that map gets redrawn, it's going to be very tough for the Republicans to be able to flip any of those 3 seats. So all those incumbents were reelected. Now in state government, it's going to be divided, with Republican Joe Lombardo as governor, and Democrats overwhelmingly controlling the state Senate and Assembly. In the Senate, it's 13 to 8 for the Dems, and 27 to 15 in the Assembly. Now those maps are also highly favorable for the Dems, but they did come up short on a supermajority, so that'll be interesting to see what happens there at a state level. We've got some ballot measures here. This first one failed. It would amend the state constitution to strip the Board of Regents of its constitutional status and would give the legislatures the power to manage state universities. 55% voted no. Then we've got some updates to the terminology in the Constitution. They give an example of changing insane to persons with significant mental illness. That was an easy pass with 66%. Then we've got a ranked choice voting amendment. That would establish a top 5 open primary with ranked choice. That was closer, but it failed with 53% voting no. So again, either there continues to be confusion or a lack of interest in ranked choice voting across many different states. The next amendment would ban the use of involuntary servitude as punishment for a crime. That easily passed with 61%. Then if you're looking to exempt child and adult diapers from the state sales tax, you're going to be happy that that passed with 68%. Then we've got the abortion amendment. That guarantees a right to the procedure until fetal viability, and that passed with 64%. And finally, require a photo ID to vote. That one passed with even more support at 73%. Looks like both of those will again be on the general election ballot in the midterms. And last, we've got Supreme Court races. All 3 of those incumbents received 70%. And then last, there's some Washoe County commissioners. So that's a look at the silver state. Let's head across to Nebraska. We've got Trump here slightly improving upon his margin from 2020. He's at just under 60%. Harris is over 39. So it's more than a 20-point margin there for Trump. All third-party candidates are under 1%. Now, Nebraska does allocate its electoral votes by congressional district. There was maybe one that was going to be potentially competitive, and that's going to be the 2nd district. But Harris won it comfortably by 5 points. The first went to Trump by 13, and the third, which is extremely red, went to Trump by 54. So Harris getting one of these electoral votes, Trump getting the other 4. It's going to be one for each of these House districts, plus the 2 at large for the 2 U.S. senators. And speaking of the Senate, we had 2 elections this year. The first is the regular election. And late in the game, that attracted an inordinate amount of attention. There was no Democrat in this race. It was an independent, Dan Osborne. He put up a good fight, but he came up short. Deb Fisher, the Republican, won a 3rd term with over 53%. Osborne was at about 46.5%. So Fisher running well behind Trump as expected. Even though Osborne is not a Democrat, the Dems would view that as a de facto pickup if somehow he were able to flip it. Now, there was also a special election here to finish the remainder of the term of Ben Sasse. He still has 2 years left on his term. That was won by former Governor Pete Ricketts, who was appointed to this seat. It was a much more robust win for Ricketts. He was over 62%. Preston Love down there at over 37. So definitely some crossover vote here of people voting for Trump and Dan Osborne, and then back to Pete Ricketts. Then back to the U.S. House. There's 3 seats, and all 3 of those are going to still be held by Republicans. The closest is again that 2nd district. Don Bacon does it again. He pulls off a win in that rematch, defeats Tony Vargas by almost 2 points. Bacon is a little bit more moderate. We're going to have to see what he does in the upcoming couple of years. Then we've got the state legislature, and there's only one chamber here in this state. It's the only state that is unicameral. It's also officially nonpartisan, but the short of it is Republicans had a supermajority, and they're going to maintain that supermajority. It's not a huge deal because they already have a Republican for governor in Jim Pillen. Now we've got the ballot measures. The first one is related to abortion, and it would not allow the procedure in the 2nd or 3rd trimester except in cases of medical emergency or for pregnancies resulting from incest or sexual assault. That's an interesting amendment. It's a little bit different from some other ones we've seen, but that did pass with 55%. Then we've got a good one here. This requires paid sick leave. That's for employees at small companies to accrue and use 40 hours of paid sick time per year. Larger company workers would get 56 hours. It's an easy pass, seems very popular. It got 75% support. If you're looking to legalize medical marijuana, that also passed pretty comfortably with 71%, as did the next one, which would establish a medical cannabis commission. Then we've got another kind of competing abortion amendment. This would establish a right to the procedure until fetal viability or when necessary to safeguard the health of the pregnant patient. It would narrowly failed with 51%. For this issue, I would like to have every state put on the ballot different amounts of time that they're okay with the procedure. At some point, it's going to be too much, and that would be where the cutoff should be. And the last amendment here is to effectively repeal this school choice funding. Looks like they're going to be repealing that with 57%. So a lot of different issues here in the Cornhusker state. Last, there's some uncontested elections here for the Public Service Commission. Now let's go on to North Carolina. Here Trump wins the state with 51%. Harris is under 48. It's a slight improvement there for Trump. All third-party candidates are under a half a point. So a big race at the top of the ticket, but what about for governor? Well, this race ultimately fizzled because everybody expected Josh Stein to win by a comfortable margin, and he did. He's at about 55%. Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson is down there at 40. What can you say? It's a total blowout there for Stein. He's going to be the next governor to succeed Roy Cooper. Trump was not at all able to pull Robinson over the finish line or even close to the finish line. Next in the U.S. House, there are 14 seats here. Republicans are going to control 10 of them, Democrats 4. The map was redrawn since the last election. It's not a fair map, but the Republicans are going to flip 3 seats out of it. There was one race that was potentially close. That's the 1st district. That's in the northeast part of the state. Ultimately, Don Davis won that by almost 2%. Now, the state legislature here is overwhelmingly Republican, and with the Democrats controlling the governor's mansion, the GOP was hoping to retain that supermajority. Looks like they just fell short in the state house, and there's still a few races outstanding. But now incoming Governor Josh Stein is going to have a lot more power with his vetoes, so that's a win there for the Democrats. What about this ballot measure here requiring citizenship to vote? It passed with very high levels of support, 78%. Then we've got the other statewide races here, and a lot of these are very close, but Democrats having more success here. They won the key races of lieutenant governor and attorney general. Republicans claiming agriculture commissioner, auditor, insurance commissioner, and labor commissioner. For Secretary of State, Democrat Elaine Marshall holds on yet again to that seat one more time. Dems also claiming superintendent of public instruction, and Republicans picking up the treasurer. So kind of a mixed bag there, but Democrats definitely going to view that as a victory. Then we've got the Court Court of Appeals and the state Supreme Court. Looks like Republicans narrowly having success on the Court of Appeals, but in the state Supreme Court, that race looks like it's tied. The Republican was leading it up until very recently, and now Allison Riggs, the Democrat, is in the lead. It's very slight. It could easily head to a recount. Republicans have had a lot of success here on the court in the last elections, so Democrats hoping to catch a break. They might pick this seat up. If they do, that's going to be a little bit of icing on the cake for them. Finally, let's finish it up here on Connecticut. And this one is a blowout here for Kamala Harris. She's over 56%. Trump is at about 42%. That margin is a little bit narrower than 2020. That's kind of the pattern we've seen across almost every state. Jill Stein there at under 1%. No governor's race here, but we do have a Senate race. It's an even wider margin. Nothing shocking here whatsoever. Chris Murphy wins another term. He's at almost 59%. The Republican there is under 40%. So Trump running a little bit ahead of that Republican. Harris running a little bit behind Murphy. And then we've got 5 seats in the U.S. House. All 5 of them are going to continue to be controlled by the Dems. The closest one there is in the 5th. It was a rematch between Johanna Hayes and George Logan. 2 years ago, it was extremely close. This time, not so much. Hayes with about a 6 to 7% win there. So Republicans again shut out of another state here in the Northeast. In the legislature here, it's going to be a trifecta for the Dems. Along with Governor Ned Lamont, they're easily going to control the state Senate and House. And the last thing we've got here is a ballot measure that would allow any voter to vote by absentee ballot without needing an excuse. That passed with a similar level of support we saw the Democrats getting statewide and for president. That's 58%. So that concludes another batch of 5 states. There's some different things to be excited about depending on what you're looking for, but I'm going to leave it there, so let me know in the comments anything you're taking a look at in any 5 of these states. What did I miss? Could any results change? Let me know down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.